what technical or integration challenges can we expect to see? What technical and integration challenges did you face, and can our audience expect to see as they kind of head down this journey? I don't know, Devin, let's start with you on that one.
I think a lot of this is communication piece. So in making sure that you're getting the right output of what you, so for example, we put in a PI system to basically get data from the process itself. Does it communicate with all the different equipment? Is it basically giving you what you're asking for? And is it compatible with everything that you have within the manufacturing operation? So that was sort of the biggest sort of the challenge that we've looked at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Randy, how about at iBio? Any specific technical or integration challenges?
Well, I really not thus far, and it's probably because we haven't really gotten that far down the path. But what I would say is that you should always be looking to the future, and what is your grand plan, as it were, and certainly automation is becoming very standardized in a lot of ways, and most platforms are very open. I mean, for instance, if you deploy an SAP ERP, for instance, there are lots of add-ons and lots of connectivity that are already built in. So those are good things to know. Things like electronic lab notebooks, another great example. If your R&D discovery team has a certain platform or tool they're using, it's really great if in selecting that, or prior to selecting that you make sure, well, will that translate easily over to PD? And then could that transfer over to MSAT as you're designing, your tech transfer protocols and programs? So I think those are the things to keep in mind.
Yeah, Paul, Randy mentioned tech transfer, and that might be the best, perspective for you to respond to this question on, rather than kind of ask you what specific technical integration challenges you may have seen, given that you outsource a lot of the work there, Paul. Were there any specific tech transfer challenges or considerations that needed to be taken into account?
I think, I would expand on Randy's first point, which is, really map out what you see as future state, because, right, in any of these situations, in the best of circumstances, we're not talking minutes, months. In some cases, we're not even talking years, right? So I think it's important that we're, 5 years into the future relative to how we're seeing these questions. As it relates to tech transfer specifically, that gets back to some of the basics as well, in terms of communicating with, in my case, communicating with suppliers and allowing for them to understand what we see, and allowing for us to be aware of what they see and what they're using. And again, it's not unlike, it's as simple as, photo sharing at home, right? If somebody's got an Android or an Apple device, like in some cases, that creates some challenges for us. Those types of things are, pervasive in this bioprocess space as well, as it relates to tech transfer or process control, any of these other elements that we're talking about.
Yep. Okay. All right. So now the question that, I anticipate that if any of your PR handlers are involved in the process, you're all going to dance around. But let's talk cost. I'm going to ask you, you can share details if you can. You can dance around it, or you can give me ballparks. But what sort of financial investments have been made specific to automation technologies to date? Paul, since I've got you on screen, let's start with you.
Yeah, I won't dance around it. I don't know is the honest answer. We haven't really thought about it, but I guess and I guess the way I would say it is, again, it's a business case item. So I don't think it's a news flash that, gosh, implementing automation is expensive. However, I would argue implementing automation in the longer term is a cost of doing business, right? So we can hire, hundreds of people that can sort of manually track all this stuff that we need to get via the automation journey. But that's ripe with opportunities for errors and missteps and challenges that then end up with a batch of products going in the dumper, right? So that's not. I don't know that that's a better way to go. There are times through the the life cycle evolution of many of our companies and process maturity, there are times when, well, that's just kind of what we have to do. But I think as we evolve, both as companies from a maturity perspective, but equally, I think our expectations are substantially higher than they were, 10, 15 years ago in terms of what we're willing to accept and have to deal with. So as it relates to all those elements, I feel like we can go down this rabbit hole for a long way. As it relates to those elements, it's a cost of doing business, and I think we need to dial that into our journey up front. Because again, think about it. And we've just seen some of these examples as we've been, racing to implement, COVID treatments and vaccinations. Missing a batch of product or multiple batches of product because something was done manually and wasn't done correctly all the time, every time. Like that's not really acceptable to us. So I think we need to change our thinking from a nice to have to need to have, and then dial in the costs accordingly.
Yeah. Randy, can you give us a picture of the investment in automation at iBio?
Sure. What I can say is, well, into what Paul just said, I honestly don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but for a standard SAP deployment, for instance, you're depending on what it looks like, right, and how many modules you have, and so on and so forth. That can range from a few $100,000 to in the millions. Mm-hmm. But I think to Paul's point, it really does come down to the business case. If you take a batch of product that has that maybe cost you who knows, depending on scale, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million if you're in a large scale facility. If you can show from a probability basis, obviously, that automation, if your success rate is 90%, you make 50 batches a year. If you could up that success rate to 95%, nobody in their right mind would say, "Oh, we can't invest in that," because the payback's right away, right? So I think that's the way you have to think about it. But being a realist as well. If you've got $10 million in the bank as an emerging, biotech, and you've got a clinical trial that's going to cost you, that $10 million, then obviously you don't really have a lot of choice. So I think, in where you put your money if you want to be successful long term. So that's sort of the way I think about the realities of our business.
Sure. Yep. Devin, what's your take on the financial commitment around process automation technology at Sutro?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can give you the exact number, but I think I would say the last 5 years, between 5 and probably 10 and keep growing $1 million. And again, not just in the manufacturing operation, but also the infrastructure, the ERP system, the facilities maintenance system, the LIMS system. So they're all sort of coming in together slowly but surely. But we've been pretty smart about, what is the, difference maker as we progress, evolve as an organization. And we sort of have a very nice collaborative effort within the organization to make sure that we make the right decision on how much to invest and where is the company going, and have a strategic sort of understanding of where the company is going from now until maybe 5 years from now, and then make those investments smartly.